we have the last piece where we're raising our child for the future we see for them, which is not entirely wrong, because as parents, you do get a perception, at the least prophecy, if you're really blessed, about your child's future. So now everything is about tomorrow, so they never learn to enjoy today.
Yes.
Parenting is a very difficult thing. Obviously, we know there's no books, and there's some people who have the genes and don't have the sense, but that's the way God planned it. In your case, and I took time to lay these out so that you would revisit these when you hear them and say, okay, so is this my history? Is it my fear, my anger, or is this what this situation calls for in the 21st century, in this particular decade? Is this what it calls for? Because who are we kidding? You did not have a cell phone. Your house was barely if you had one phone.
Right.
We were big if we had one phone in the house, and everybody scrambled for that phone. We were stunned when we found out we can get a second phone.
Right.
And it was just an extension. It wasn't even another line, but we was glad anyhow.
Yep.
But today, to raise your children, you have to factor in how the world got to be the way it is, which is you're bringing that piece of it to the equation, and then what the world really is. And then you're going to have to factor in the logical sequence. You know, one of the things that God said to me one time, I had an accident, and I told God I'm never driving again. I was so scared. I mean, it never felt. And so, no, I'm sorry, I am wrong. That's another story. This story, my daughter had an accident in my Mercedes.
She's still alive?
Yeah, she's still, you know her.
Oh,
she survived. Okay. And so I got, and
not from an accident, from the repercussions.
Yeah, but that too. But here's what was so interesting, because I can tell you that the Lord is a master father, but he's a wise dad. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, and you're never driving again, and on and on and on. Well, she already feels like trash. I'm not helping her. Right. She's got her mother's cars going off crippled off to someplace. But here's what the Holy Ghost said to me. He said, I never teach my kids to fear. He said, I teach them one fear, and that's me. I never use a calamity to cause them to be afraid. Wow. I make them go back and redo it until they master it, because I'm not a father of fear. I was like, okay, but I really don't want her to drive my car. You know, but
that definitely speaks to me, the fear thing.
But he told me, he said, in your world, in the world of a broken man, there's no room for mistakes. There's no room to harvest mistakes. There's no room to even admit mistakes in the world of a broken man. And that's what he told me about my kids. So from that moment on, so she was like, I never want to drive again. No, you're going to drive because God said you got to drive. So you're going to drive this car. So, we let her drive the loan. But that trust in her ability to recoup and recover gave her the courage that she needed. He said, she has a great calling and she has a very long life ahead of her. He said, I can't let you seed her future or her pathway with fear. I can't let you do it. He said, wisdom, correction, instruction, yes, but not fear. And so from that moment on, it changed how I handled my kids, even their mistakes. And I used to tell them when they came to me, they'd say, I did so-and-so. So what are you going to do about it? I don't know. I said, well, the next time you come to me and tell me what you did wrong, you better tell me how you fixed it. My daughter today, you can admit, is a great solutionist because I raised her that way. Don't come telling me the problem. I want to know that you took it, because if they solve it, that means they owned it. And so I make the note, fix that. You go fix it. I don't know how to fix. Go figure it out. And some things were large, and I let them take it to the extent that they could fix it. And I do that with my staff. They don't come to me and say, "Guess, oops, we have a problem." You got to come to me saying, "We fixed the problem.
Right.
We resolved an issue," because we have got to take Satan's greatest weapon out of our arsenal, particularly out of our parenting arsenal, and that is terrorizing our children.
Amen.
We've got to do away with the terror. Does that make sense to you?
No, absolutely. I think fear is a big thing that men use, especially with their children. And again, just going back to my dad's style, that is something he used. And even in the beginning stages when I transitioned to Oklahoma, everything was fear tactics.
Mm-hmm.
But if people don't know, I signed up for with some of your prophets, and we
Mm-hmm.
did some prayer. And during prayer, they shared with me that I have anger that
Mm-hmm.
was inside of me, and that's from the way I grew up because I was so angry at my dad, but I didn't realize I was still holding on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so those explosions were deep down inside, and my sons were getting that.
Mm-hmm.
So you messed up, blah 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 blah, and they're like just shocked because
Mm-hmm.
the person that they love, and I know that feeling because I've been on the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. They want so bad to make me happy
Mm-hmm.
because they're my little guys. And so now working through that with the prophet for several sessions, just figuring out one, where the rage came from,
Mm-hmm.
being able to address it, and then be able to take care of it and have a solution. And so now when my kids have issues, I'm like, man, that sounds like that didn't work out.
Yeah. So what are you
So
gonna do?
yeah. But the next thing is my oldest one, Austin, who's 6. Hey, Dad, I did so and so, but I already wiped it up. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right,
We just need you to acknowledge it because
Yeah.
teaching them right from wrong does not always have to be a harsh lesson.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be abusive or oppressive.
Yeah.
My kids were like, do it. When they couldn't fix a problem, I said, give me your bank. You got to pay because that's what happens with people when they make mistakes. You got to pay for this. You know what? We didn't get a lot of broken things in my house
Oh.
because my kids were stingy. They were not giving up their money. But I let them know this is life.
Mhm.
And the best lessons you'll ever get is from your failures, your shortfalls, and your setbacks. If you can solutionize those,
Okay.
then you can manage your life. Now, let's talk about this rage. That rage
Mhm.
that you felt, that rage became an antidote. That's how you survived.
Right.
You raged inwardly.
Mm-hmm.
Even though outwardly you were respectful.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, sir.
Yeah.
But inwardly, you soothed that hurt, that humiliation, which
Yeah.
you probably had a lot of,
Yeah.
and you soothed it with rage.
Yeah.
And so you raged in your room. I'm going to break this. I'm going to knock this out. I'm
Mhm.
going to whatever. You had your own techniques,
Mhm.
but then you outgrew the techniques of a child, and you never, ever stop letting rage be the antidote.
Mm.
And it's that antidote. No matter what we go through in life and how we feel, the soul is so smart. It has to have a solution. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
The soul demands a solution. If people are emotionally uh, disordered, they
Mhm.
have emotional disorder, personal, all of that. What does disorder means? Broken order. So when you don't do something with the order that is born, whatever that structure is, you're out of your dad's structure, but that order is still pressing in on you.
Yeah.
So you have to do something with it. You've got to come up with an antidote. Well, you couldn't come up with an antidote with good deeds because he didn't recognize those.
No, that didn't work.
No, he didn't recognize those. I didn't ask. Did I ask you for that? I didn't need that. You
You
know,
was there?
I know. I just trust me.
She was
40 years with saints. Yeah, I didn't ask you for that. No, you're not going to con me. You know, you're not. No. And so that only added to your embarrassment
Mhm.
and your humiliation and your anger.
Mhm.
So now they all package themselves in a nice little tonic, toxic tonic
Yes, very.
called rage.
Yep.
So now those situations are gone, aren't they?
Yes, yes.
All gone. But you never told the tonic it was no longer needed. You never expired the response.
Mhm.
You never retired the reaction. So now all your soul remembers are the feelings. So
Mhm.
your sentimental file just knows the feelings. And when that feelings happens,
The natural reaction.
here's the tonic.
Mm.
We need that antidote because we know we can't be enraged because rage brings out the worst in us.
Mhm.
Rage will get me in trouble. Rage will hurt my whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
It goes on. So you've got the tonic. That's how come people get physically sick from emotional states
Mhm.
because you've never ever said, I don't need that any longer. And you never put anything else in its place. So because now you have to go from the antidote to what made you upset,
Right.
which is why people get into toxic
Yeah.
whatever.
Behaviors.
You have to go from that, and then you have to move into something else called appeasement.
Okay.
How do you appease that area that is so used to being raw,
Mhm.
so used to being inflammatory and inflamed? What do? This is what God does. You know, people ask me, "Doctor, how do you know that?" He told me. He
Yeah.
tells me how he made decisions about himself every step of the way. Granular, microscopic, nanoscopic
Love it.
decisions about everything, because everything in him is life and it
Yes.
has a living flex or reaction.
Hmm.
So he started telling me about this. This is over 40 years. So I'm telling you,
Right.
you never, even though you and your dad are getting along fine,
Hmm.
you don't have the same impact. Those impulses are still on guard. It's hair trigger
Hmm.
on guard. That's what a hair trigger temper is.
Yeah.
It's hitting something that you have already commanded to react in a certain way. And since you've not voided that command and replaced that reaction with something that is more suitable
Hmm.
or healthy, since you have not done that, well, it's just going to keep doing it. So you mad at the wife, I'm mad at the dog, I'm mad at the job, and you misread everybody, and you misread everything, and
Hmm.
you misinterpret it all. Did I overwhelm you?
I'm gonna drop the mic.
Cannot drop the mic.
No, I definitely think you're spot on. And again, like I said, just working with your team of prophets and apostles and sitting down and walking through the start, the finish, the progress, and the solutions step by step. Because I don't like to say this, but I'm almost looking at like an onion in a different manner, is where I have all these things that have built up over time. And so now we're just peeling back each layer
Mm,
so we can get into the center of it, get to the good stuff again, and then start fresh.
yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're doing it. And what I'd like to hear and what I'm appreciating about you right now is how
Thank you.
proactive you've been.
Mhm.
So now before we wrap it up, tell me about your working with the men. What is it? How is that affecting you? And what are you learning about manhood and masculinity? Because they're not the same. We think they are,
Correct.
but they're not the same.
So I'm learning that first and foremost, this is a huge undertaking. And I say that because I don't take the souls of men lightly. And so I think, from just knowing to me, and sure God is telling you that I have a deep desire to see men do well.
Hmm.
And so I'm trying to build the man holistically. And what I mean by that is the man has all these parts of him. I look at like a pie. So there's a financial piece. He needs to be financially savvy. He needs to be physically strong, mentally strong, spiritually equipped. Like we just got to be well rounded. And so I'm trying to figure out how I can do that. And so when I was younger, I used to try to do everything on my own, but God's like, that's not how it gets done. So one thing that I share with the men is that everything I need is in this house, or God will bring it to this house. And so each one of them have talents, and I use those talents and I draw from them to strengthen our men. And I show them biblically, like iron sharpens iron. This is what this means. This is how we help each other. So you're good at this, I'm good at this. Let's link in together and let's share with every man in this room. And then what's going on now in this era with all these things that are trying to take away from man and make them feminine,
Hmm.
we address those issues. We have what my leader in my church calls a think tank.
Hmm.
And we talk about, so where did this start?
Hmm.
What is the reason for this? How are they doing it? Okay, now how can we combat it? And so we walk through each step of that process so that we can educate men as young as 13 in my office,
Hmm.
all the way up to 80. I don't know how old Miss Floyd is, but to the older folks. And I just really appreciate it, because as I look in the room, they're allowing me to lead them, because they don't have to come. So when they come, that means they're allowing me to do it. They're coming knowing that I'm leading them. So I do take a great honor in that. And again, I feel it's a privilege, and I don't take it lightly. And right now we're teaching on money as a spirit. And so the men are really getting a lot. And it's important
Hmm.
in this season that people really learn that too.
Oh, it is. But that money is a spirit, cashing in on you,
Hmm.
being your own cash cow.
Hmm.
So let me ask you this: what would you think is the major issue, the most overarching issue that they come to the group with or bring to the group, as a collective, but also as individuals?
Not feeling confident in being a man.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is just not knowing their true purpose.
Hmm.
So a lot of men just think like my dad, as long as I provide food, clothes, shelter, that's
Hmm.
what a man is. And
But isn't that what we talked about when I first addressed them?
mhm,
Role
Rose.
versus being.
Hmm.
You know, because everything that we teach a man in this world is about the role they're to fill. You take
Hmm.
the role, you lost the confidence.
Yeah.
They don't have any, because, well, they don't need me to do that any longer. You get older and nobody wants you at their games any longer, or whatever. Life happens. But I'm excited about it. What would you think they'd want to take away from this group more than anything else, aside from the confidence you just mentioned?
That when they make this gospel real and biotic, that it's going to change everything that they do in life, and they'll never be the same again. And I know for me, even just I shared with my wife 2 days ago, I was upset at something. But my reaction, I just shared it with her transparency, just like
Mhm.
Adam did in the garden. I said, hey, this thing bothered me. But I said my reaction in the past would have been this, but I changed it to this, and
Exactly.
this is how I reacted to it. And for her, she was just blown away, and I'm blown away just even sharing it with you because I'm like, wow, Lord, you're really changing me. And
Yes.
he's changing my neuroplasticity
Yeah.
surges. He's changing my occipital lobe, and he's just changing everything. That's how we're praying too.
Can you believe we are Christians in church talking about neuroplasticity and occipital lobe? I
Yes.
mean, we are that in this church,
Hmm.
in this biotic gospel.
Hmm.
Well, you have a lovely wife,
Thank you.
and I've enjoyed her. I'm watching her grow, and you two grow together as a couple.
Yes.
What would you like to say based on all that you've learned and all that you've shared with her? What would you like to say to our viewers as a husband?
As a husband, I think your role should just be to continue to encourage your wife and to grow her and help. Uh, I've been told that our name means gardener. And so she's like a flower. And so our job is to make sure that she is nourished and she
Mhm.
gets everything she needs. And a lot of people think that's just money and food and everything. But the spiritual component is the most important component. And we've learned now that the more we lock in spiritually, the more connected we are.
Mhm.
So that if I'm off or she's off, God can speak to us and then we can move up together. There's a nice little triangle that people make. God's at the top. It's an isosceles, which is
Mhm.
really important. And your wife is on one side, the male's on the other. And as the two of you go to the closer to God, you're naturally going to become closer to one.
Mhm.
So if you want to be one with God and one with your wife, they got to be they got to be the same.
Well, what do you think about if, as a young husband, because you're a husband in this generation,
Hmm.
so you're kind of like that bridge generation. But
Yes.
what do you think about your wife having her own purpose or destiny or calling distinct from yours, not separate but distinct? What do you think about that, especially in view of the church's teaching and your background?
Yeah. So I grew up Baptist, and as far as I knew that everything was about me. Let's be honest. Can I just be honest? Everything was about me, and I mean that as the man. I'm not just saying me, Alvin, but
Me, the man.
the man. And that's why all these poor teachings come out about apostles and everything like that, because they're just doing things based on roles. But that's another topic, altogether.
Mhm.
So back in the past, I would say it was about the man, his leadership, his guidance, what he says goes, and he puts his foot down, and that's the end of it all. But the reality is, the reason the two become one, because it's almost like Jesus and God. He says, I only say what the Father says. So
Mhm.
when me and my wife become one, she would say exactly what I would say. I would say exactly what she would say. And so you just have to have that dwelling with each other according to knowledge and understanding based on your relationship with each other and just that time and that knowledge. And then the other piece I would say is that if you guys aren't praying together daily, reading the scripture together daily, talking about the messages, how are you going to lead her and guide her when you can't talk about the things that matter the most for her eternity?
Well, listen, I've enjoyed our chat today, Alvin, and this has been wonderful. They're going to love it. You all are going to hear this, probably part one and part two. How long have you been married?
Why would you ask me that, Dr.
Because you
Pierce?
don't know.
I've been married. I do know. My wife would tell you I'm the best at this. 22 years, but I've been married since 2007.
Okay. Been married since 2007. So that's a now you want to do the math.
Yeah,
Too late.
you got me. I was like, hold on,
Too late. And when she sees it, she's going to get you.
'Cause I've been with this woman since 2001, and for the record, I did ask her to marry me right away. The only reason we did not is because we wanted to honor our parents, and they both asked us to wait till we got to college. But in 2001, I knew I didn't want to play around. This is what God gave me because I prayed for her.
Mhm.
On the side note, I prayed, and she's exactly to the T what I prayed for plus some.
Good save.
That's the
I
truth.
enjoyed you. It's been great having you. And hopefully we'll have you pass through our doors again. But until then, God bless you. I think we've covered a lot. Do you feel like this was effective for
Very,
you?
very much. And I'm going to continue to deal with fear and not make sure I'm not planting that seed.
Amen. All right. Hey, we've come to the end of another episode of Soul Call Friday. And it's important because everybody has a soul, but not everybody's soul is under their control. How about you work at putting yours under your control? If you're interested in being one of our guests, reach out to us on the information on the screen, and we will be glad to schedule you, whether you're here in Tulsa or by Zoom, because I know that you want your soul under your control. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.